Similar to other forms of entertainment, video games are a way for people to escape into a new world unlike our own. From exploring caves, taking part in wars, even cooking, there's a game for everyone. I myself have found games to be a fun and exciting pastime and hobby. And so for my senior project, I decided to try and create my own, as well as research whether there are any physical or mental effects from playing video games. Games can increase one's levels of anger and frustration, but these effects are part of the game and are temporary, only lasting while you play the game. Most of this is caused by difficult levels that leave the player feeling a bit defeated and angry with the hard level. Games are supposed to be a way of relieving stress and a temporary distraction. You may get a bit flustered while playing a game, but nothing feels better than beating that hard level you've been working on. During my exploration of the effects of video games, I discovered cases of people becoming violent after playing video games, or neglecting their day-to-day duties. But does this mean video games are a bad thing? No. These are very rare cases, and the average person that plays a game for an hour or two a day will not turn into a violent recluse. Most of these cases are of people that take playing games to an excess. But it's when the anger and frustration goes outside of the game that it causes problems for people. Some of the people that are involved in these rare cases were later diagnosed with some form of mental illness that contributed to their actions. One place, for example, where some of these rare cases take place is in South Korea, where computer gaming is huge. And what would you do on a free Friday night? Would you go out with some friends, go to a movie? But in South Korea, they have places called PC bangs, which is a building filled with powerful gaming computers with incredibly fast internet that people can pay to use and spend their time. These places are always busy. Some of these people spend all day there, neglecting their lives outside of the games they play. But this is just a small amount of people that become too involved with video games. As someone who plays video games, I try to play them in moderation and not forget about the other things I still have to do. For my project, I wanted to create a game. The game I created was called Unconventional Magic. It was created using a software called RPG Maker BHS. The RPG Maker software allows you to create a 2D style game similar to Pokemon. During my development of the game, I learned a lot about the game's creation and about the amount of coding that went into making a normal game. Using the software, I was not required to know any coding, but the coding was available if I wanted to see it and or use it, though it was not necessary to create the entirety of the game. Going into this, I had no idea how to use the software, and I didn't know anyone that had used it in the past. So to make up for my lack of knowledge, I used a tool we're all very familiar with, Google. I looked for online tutorials and guides on how to create games using RPG Maker. What I found were hundreds of videos and instructions on how to create cool events, maps, and set up boss fights. Even with all this knowledge, the game wouldn't have been any fun unless I put some of my own creative flair into it. I was able to be incredibly creative creating my own maps and characters using the software. And a few of my friends wanted to be in the game, so I used the character creator in the game to place them in. The story follows a young mage who is asked to take part in a dangerous quest by his headmaster of his school, after a mysterious man releases dangerous enemies from their prisons. From there, the mage will travel to dungeons in search of these monsters and the mysterious man. To start the game, the player has to make it to school by walking through a cave and a path infested with slimes, bats, and giant wasps. Along the way, there's an optional side dungeon that the player can take part in. At the end of the path, will be a teleporter that will send you to the school. After you have time to explore the school, you'll be able to set off to your first dungeon. The first dungeon takes place in a forest maze where you can run into huge snakes, man-eating plants, and spiders. There are 3 different levels to it, and ultimately leading to the dungeon boss at Chimera. After you clear the first dungeon, you can move on to the second dungeon, which takes place in an abandoned mine in a volcano. There are 5 different levels to it and where you can fight orcs, imps, and skeletons. And the final boss will end up being a giant ogre. After you've completed the 2 dungeons, you are able to go back to school to prepare for your fight with the unknown man. After you beat him, you win the game. But all of this didn't come without its issues. One of the big issues that I'm currently still dealing with is balancing the combat. Because it's no fun starting a battle and losing after your first turn. Or being too strong and never failing attacks. Using the database, you can adjust the attack power of any enemies as well as your own, but getting it just right has been difficult. I would like to keep adding and refining to the game in the future. This project has left me with a better understanding and appreciation for my hobby and the amount of work game developers put into their games. But also that moderation is a good thing, and to be able to take a step back and enjoy the world around you. So I will leave you with this. Explore your hobbies to the fullest, but remember to take a step back and look around you. And for anyone wondering who the final boss is, it's going to be the giant team. Questions?
John, what level of choice, design do you have in creating those characters? They're pretty interesting.
So most of the characters like this one come with the game, but I can add my own. I'm messing with that a little bit by just doing minimal Photoshop, like putting some friend's head on something like this. And then also with like the levels, you can choose different tiles and stuff that you can place around. Like I built these entire maps myself. Like it just gave me a blank screen and I could place all these things and design it how I wanted to. Yeah, he was in there for a little bit.
And then as far as kind of the game theory about it, how much is too much challenge and how much, how did you find out about that?
Well, I was decided that I would have a friend play it, and he would get through the first level fairly easily, but still have some difficulty. But then once he got after that, the next area, he would just come across these enemies that would just kill him, and he wouldn't be able to make it onto the past that. And then so I tried to tweak that, but it's just then it got too strong and then could clear everything without even taking any damage.
The trial.
Yeah, it's mostly just put trial in there. Yeah.
What's the biggest problem you overcame? Something that you thought something you might have thought you would never overcome. What did you have to, biggest problem you had to overcome?
A lot of it was they're causing events, which was just like making people move automatically or moving you from place to place. A lot of them, I wanted them to appear at some times, but not on others. So using different variables and numbers, I could try to make them appear, but that just wasn't working out. So I had to think of another way, using a little bit of a workaround, using a letter counter instead of a number counter, where it was whatever letter appeared, it would do something instead of a different range of numbers. So it was more a single digit than a multiple.